It's been 3 years since this hotel has been abandoned. I take it no one is going to tear it down. Why should they? It doesn't interfere with anyone. Even the territory is of no use to anyone. And this is not surprising, because it stands in a bad neighborhood, where only alcoholics, drug addicts and homeless people live. And it worked for a little while, until, apparently, the owners did not realize that customers will think 10 times before moving in. Even those who were just passing through were avoiding the neighborhood. It's not that the hotel was poorly built or insufficiently equipped. It's all about where it stood. And a year later, when the owners got tired of lowering room rates, they just closed it down. Now nobody cares about it. Young people gather there, drug addicts, even homeless people live there. It's better than the street. I visit this place often. I like places like this by nature. It reminds me of something, but I can't remember what it is. There's even my favorite place in this hotel, where I spend most of my time. It's an ordinary one-room, and now empty room overlooking the city. The wallpaper is torn. There are cigarette butts and bottles on the floor. Overall no different from any other room. But when I'm in there I get the haunting feeling that someone is waiting for me. Perhaps it was my family that was waiting for me when I was alive. There aren't many people like me here. Like me. They just hang around the hallway or stand in the same place all night. I come here often and have been coming here for about a year. But I haven't talked to any of them yet. They have no interest in me or the living. They've been dead for a long time. I watch them sometimes. Some of them are quite boring and uninteresting because they tend to stare out the window or in the corner all the time. There are some who don't like to stand in one place. They constantly go from room to room, sometimes even running around for no reason. I think they're just trying to remember who they were. The problem is that it doesn't work. They, like me, are trying to cling to what connected them to their past lives. Even when I'm in that room, I have feelings, yet I can't even remember my parents' names. Everything human in me is slowly fading away, but I believe it has to be this way. I believe that this is another stage that you have to overcome yourself to finally find peace. Why is death considered so scary? I don't remember why I was so afraid of it when I was alive. Surprisingly, I remember dying very well. It was 4 years ago. I was walking home from work. It was already evening, the snow was falling, the roads were bustling. Everyone was rushing home to their family, to those who love and wait for you. Someone was waiting for me, too. Then the squeal of the tires and the impact. It didn't hurt at all. I was lying there, and I was getting colder and colder. I couldn't move or even blink, but I could feel the cold all the time. Maybe I was dying by then. As I lay there, I thought about everything in the world. I even remembered when my eraser had been stolen in 2nd grade, and I had thrown a tantrum about it. When I remembered it, lying on my back, it was funny. A tear ran down my cheek, and to my surprise it was so warm. Then a light, a very bright light. It was a flashlight. I couldn't hear very well what those people were saying, like I was listening underwater. At that moment I remembered swimming at the lake. It was a vivid memory, and very colourful. Then it all faded out. I was wandering around. It was like a dream. I couldn't make sense of anything. Everything was familiar to me, and yet I didn't realize where I was. I don't know how long it was until I came to my senses. By this point I was on the outskirts of town near a hotel that had already closed. I had plenty of time to think about it, because I was in no hurry to get anywhere. The first thing I did when I came to my senses was to head home and realize he was gone. Or rather, my family was now living somewhere else. At that point, I knew everyone from my family. But now, no matter, I headed back to where I came from. I later realized that when you're dead, you're not held by shackles. The dead are thought to dwell where they died. But that's not really true. I could go wherever I wanted to go, but I had no desire to leave the city itself. Perhaps I believed I could still meet my family. 4 years have passed since then. Those vegetables, wandering aimlessly through the corridors. There is loud music playing in the building again. I can't concentrate. And for the first time I feel angry. And then I remember an incident that happened when I first started coming here. One day some Satanist sect came here and slaughtered chickens and painted the walls with blood. I was a little offended that no one cared enough to clean it up for them. In my lifetime, I remember seeing their murals in abandoned houses where I used to play with my friends as a kid. Naturally, there was nothing I could do. We could only watch it and just wait for them to finish. I was about to leave when I suddenly noticed one dead man standing there watching the whole thing, just like me. Up until this point, I thought the one was not happy with what was going on, but he was just pissed off. He was shaking with anger and would do anything to make those stop. What happened next remains a mystery to me. The Satanists, apparently, were summoning a demon or something else, not realizing that 2 meters away from them stood the evil itself, which could not find peace for many years. He had put up with this noise year after year. Apparently, this ritual of theirs was the last straw for him. He swung around and struck the wall. The rumble from the impact was like a gunshot, plus it echoed throughout the hotel. The Satanists, to put it mildly, freaked out, but not after the blow. But when they saw the sudden dent of his fist in the concrete, and a couple seconds later, they were out of the building. Honestly, if I had the digestion, I would have pissed myself after such a spectacle. Now, years later, I recognized that dead guy. He'd been here all this time, staring out the window like he was waiting for someone. I don't understand how he did it. I was sitting in my hotel room in the corner of the room the moment I heard construction work going on outside the window. I don't know how I didn't hear them earlier. It's like I blacked out. I don't know how exactly, but I don't care because I'm dead, apparently. They finally decided to level the hotel. I don't know what to do next or where to go. This room will cease to exist in a few minutes, but it's what kept me going. But there's no choice. I have to wander around looking for a new home. If I stay, I'll be like the mindless creatures that roam the streets. Perhaps I was lucky, or perhaps it was fate. But I found a new home for myself, an empty house. But unfortunately it's for rent, and I'll have to share it with new owners in the future. Strangely enough, this street where the house stands has become quite different. I recognized it a little. I don't understand. It's been so long. I like the house very much. There's an old armchair here. Apparently the previous owners forgot to take it away. As I wandered the streets, I thought about my family. Now I don't remember them at all. And most importantly, I don't want to see them. I'm angry with them. I feel like they abandoned me, left me here. I don't want to see anyone. This is my house, and that's it. I won't tolerate anyone here. I'll kill anyone. I'll kill anyone who dares to stay here for a day. I will. This house is mine. I'm not looking for another. I'll kill anyone. Hello, dear listeners. I would like to point out right away that the story you are about to hear is real and happened directly to me, not to anyone else. It is connected with the apartment in which I have been living for 10 years or so. Frankly speaking, a lot of strange things managed to happen in it for all this time, but perhaps one case will be remembered for a long time, if not forever. It happened 2 years ago, in the spring. At that time, was a second-year student of the institute. A lot of studying, little time for anything else, and a constant desire to sleep. I think students will understand me. One day, after sitting up late studying, I decided that it was time to wrap up and go to bed, because tomorrow I had to get up early again to go to the institute. Having closed all the windows, it is important, and turned off all the lights, I lay down on the sofa and immediately fell into sleep. In the middle of the night, through my sleep, I began to hear someone calling me by name, so long and insistently, and the call was rather half-voiced. It seemed that the voice was female, and it went on and on until I finally woke up. When I opened my eyes, I didn't immediately realize what was happening. I picked up my cell phone and looked at it. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. I remembered that it was raining outside the window, and it was thumping loudly on the windows. And then, after a short period of time, I heard that voice again, but in real life. I can't put into words the fear and the feeling of horror I felt then. I sat down on the couch and saw the curtains in the room where I was sleeping swaying. It felt like a light breeze was blowing, but I clearly remembered that I had closed all the windows before going to bed. Unfortunately, it was, as it turned out later, not the worst thing. Still sitting on the couch, I felt a glance at me, as if someone stood behind me and stared at me persistently. Turning around, I saw a woman standing at the door of my room. I couldn't see her face, just a translucent black silhouette in front of me. She had no legs. She was literally floating. Then it was like I was in a daze. Couldn't move at all. I just sat there, turned around and stared at her, feeling her gaze on me, though I couldn't see her facial features and the same slight chill. Then she raised her hand and began to make letters or symbols in the air. I still don't understand what she was trying to write that way, but after she finished, I was unable to remember anything. I remember waking up in the morning from the alarm clock, and the very realization of what I had seen during the night came only closer to lunchtime, when I was sitting in one of my classes at the institute. It was very scary to go home afterwards. A completely incomprehensible and extremely creepy story happened to me just the other day, on the night of July 9th to 10th, 2014. I am a soccer fan, so I could not miss such a significant event in the life of any fan as the World Cup. I watched almost all the games live, due to the fact that I live in Siberia. The broadcast of matches from Brazil was going on deep into the night, and I had to get up on my alarm clock, drink coffee, and watch the game in such a state. It was the night of the semi-final match, where the teams of Argentina and Holland met to find out who would get a ticket to the final. As usual, I got up on the signal of the telephone alarm clock, yawned a little, knocked back a couple of cups of strong black coffee, and sat down in front of the TV. At first I felt quite cheerful. After all, it was a semi-final. The tension was high, and the day before there had been a truly epic match between the Germans and the Brazilians. But, alas, this match turned out to be very dull. The opponents were not in a hurry to go on the attack and score the cherished goals, and little by little during the second half I dozed off. At the same time, the effect of 2 portions of coffee, apparently, was still continuing, and instead of a full-fledged sleep I found myself in some strange prostration. I seemed to perceive what was going on around me, understood that I was lying at home, heard the voice of the soccer commentator, but did not understand anything, and at the same time was mostly asleep. That is, my brain was off, and here I was lying on the sofa in such a state, and suddenly I clearly realized that someone was blocking my TV screen. I want to irritably say to him, "Get away, you're interfering with the view." And there is no surprise or fear of who it could be. I live alone in the apartment. I can't say anything, but the one who is obstructing my view, as if hearing my thoughts, moves aside, revealing to me the glowing rectangle of the screen. But he doesn't stop there. He starts walking around the room, touching the books on the shelves, looking in the mirror, looking behind the closed curtains. Who it is and how he looks, I cannot say. The guest is perceived purely abstractly. Edge of consciousness. I remind you that I'm still 90% asleep, and I don't care about anything. Finally, having searched the whole room, the guest returns to the sofa, leans over me, and seems to ask me something. I don't respond, my mind blissfully blank. The man asks again, more impatiently. I remain silent. I feel that the guest starts to get irritated, and then he naturally loses his temper. He snatches a knife from somewhere and starts to stab me in the face, on my chest, on my arms. There's no pain, and by this point I'm starting to realize that I'm either dreaming or I've fallen into sleep paralysis, as I've been a couple of times before. I try to force myself to wake up. Meanwhile, the guest seems to calm down, says some words of apology to me, and walks away toward the hallway. As soon as he leaves, I come to my senses. My head is splitting. My muscles are stiff, and my throat is dry. Remembering that I was watching the match, I take a sitting position and see that the semi-final is already over. The final penalty shootout is underway. Messi is at the ball, but I can't get into soccer properly because I notice that my clothes are all sticky. I look at myself. Mother of God, my shirt is covered in blood. My shorts are covered in blood. Blood is dripping down my legs. I rushed like a madman to the bathroom and started pulling off my clothes. I didn't find any wounds, not even small scratches, but there was a lot of blood on his clothes. And it was clear to me at once that it was blood, not some kind of paint, not a joke. And the color, and the smell, and crusts when it dries. Anyway, I didn't sleep that night. I checked all the doors and windows. Everywhere was closed and locked. No one could get in. I washed my clothes in the washing machine and took a long shower myself. In the following days, I walked somehow with apprehension, whether I was afraid that an uninvited guest would come again in a dream, or whether I thought that the police would come and charge me with the fact that I had walked in a dream and stabbed a man. But nothing happened. I sleep well at night. No nightmares or visions. I hope nothing will happen in the future.